Good morning. I have decided to do this week's discussion on Harry Fosdick's sermon, Shall the Fundamentalists Win? Now, this sermon came about in May of 1922 during the height of the disagreements and arguments between the fundamentalists and the modernists in the Presbyterian Church. Harry Fosdick was an ordained Baptist minister, but he was given special permission to preach at the First Presbyterian Church in New York City. So on that Sunday, he got up and argued in his sermon titled, Shall the Fundamentalists Win? He argued that liberals in both the Presbyterian and the Baptist denominations were struggling to reconcile between history, science, and religion. And so he claimed that the fundamentalists were considered or cast as intolerant conservatives who refused to deal with new discoveries, and they did not want to continue religious discussions into how science and new discoveries were actually influencing the religion, the Presbyterian religion. The sermon ended up being one of the most controversial sermons that was presented during this time, and it was immediately made into pamphlets and circulated throughout the Northeast, and then it also spread nationwide. He claimed that the five fundamentals were inaccurate and that he did not agree with them. And this caused some real problems with the fundamentalist group within the Presbyterian Church. The use of this speech became such an issue throughout the church that they ended up having a hearing, and they exonerated him ultimately, but he ended up having to leave preaching from the Presbyterian Church because of this sermon. Now, he did end up signing the Auburn Affirmation, which means he accepted the doctrine of the Westminster Confession, but he didn't think that it had any authority. The affirmation claimed that the Assembly's action against Fosdick was unconstitutional and insisted that effective preaching of the gospel required doctrinal liberty in the church. He was ultimately exonerated and found that he had some very good points within his sermon that he made. Now, he caused such a strife between another pastor, Clarence Macartney, that he ended up writing his own sermon called Shall Unbelief Win? He was a fundamentalist, and he published it immediately as a pamphlet and argued that liberalism, which the modernists were considered more liberal, was progressively secularizing the church, and left unchecked would lead to a Christianity of opinions and principles and good purposes, but without worship, without God, and without Jesus Christ. Thank you for listening.